What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Offsetting Penalties podcast, episode 29. We're so close to episode 30. It's amazing that I've got out this many episodes. It honestly feels like more, probably just chopping up the clips and putting them on social medias and whatnot. I'll make it quick. Today, Super Bowl, right? Super Bowl Sunday. This is the biggest sporting event of the year. I'm repping Team USA right now. World Cup will be in the summer. This is an excellent sports year. But today we're here to talk about the Super Bowl, hosted in the Bay Area at Levi Stadium. I wish I was back home so maybe I could go to some of the festivities and whatnot that week. To be fair, don't love Seattle, don't love New England, so it doesn't make that much of a difference to me. But honestly, a really solid Super Bowl matchup. I think most people are kind of disrespecting in a way. I think it's set up to be a really good Super Bowl. It sounds like all the Super Bowl week festivities and whatnot have gone pretty well in the Bay Area, which is good. You know, believe it or not, people, San Francisco isn't the tenderloin in the entire city, right? There might just be one area and the rest of the city is great. And it seems like a lot of the reception this week has been San Francisco has been awesome for the people who have been there for Super Bowl week, which is amazing. You know, I love that city and really, you know, just a beautiful city and a great place, even though the actual game's basically in San Jose. Really just an awesome place to hold the Super Bowl. Next year, it will be in Los Angeles, kind of near where I am right now, which is exciting stuff. So, yeah, it's Super Bowl Sunday. This is the event of the year. The Offsetting Penalties, NFL podcast content, it will still continue past the Super Bowl for sure. The NFL season never sleeps. You got combine. I don't know if I'll do anything combine on the pod. You've got the draft. You've got free agency. You've got the schedule release. You know, the NFL offseason is still, eventful and whatnot. But this is our final football for a very long time, which is very sad. The season has flown by. So without further ado, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Follow Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, everything. Offsetting Penalties is the same handle everywhere. There's no differentiation in the different handles. It's just playing Offsetting Penalties. And without further ado, the Super Bowl matchup this year, as everyone knows, the New England Patriots, 14-3 New England Patriots, which people forget, versus the 14-3 Seattle Seahawks, which most people do not forget. Seattle 4.5-point favorites in this one. The over/under 45.5 points. It's a fascinating matchup on all fronts. Honestly, I've done so many of these NFL pods. I'm used to firing through the games. This feels weird that I only have one game to talk about. But New England, Seattle, this is the rematch from 11 years ago. The iconic Malcolm Butler, why didn't you hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch on the goal line Super Bowl? The Richard Sherman on the sidelines, Brady jumping up and down on the sidelines. One of the more legendary Super Bowls, at least of my lifetime. And we're here 11 years later with the rematch. That last one was in Arizona. This one is in the Bay Area. And a fascinating matchup on so many different fronts. And I think it's only fair, like any matchup, if you start with the quarterbacks. Drake May, MVP candidate. I'm recording this a little before the NFL honors. I'd like to assume Matthew Stafford's going to win the award. And Drake May battling a little bit of a shoulder injury. He sounds like he's going to be okay for this one. He was a full go at practice. And sensational sophomore season. There's no other way around it. It's just been sensational. He's unbelievably good with his legs, as he has an unbelievable arm. He completed more deep balls than anyone in the NFL this year, which is sneaky. Not many people think about that. And he's just been unbelievable this season. The playoffs hasn't been great. It really hasn't been for Drake May. And I would like to think a lot of that is a product of the defenses he's played. The Chargers have a really good defense, the Texans have a really good defense, and the Broncos have really good defenses. You could argue those are all top 5 defensive units in the NFL. Well, Drake May, you're playing Seattle, which is as talented and as good of a defense as any defense in the entire league. So it doesn't get easier. You can play the whole, his down performances in the playoffs have been because of the defenses he's played. Well, look at who he's playing in this matchup. It's going to be really tough. And the thing about Seattle is they just beat you up front, right? They just rely on the talent that they have. And it's not like some incredible, Mike McDonald's an incredible defensive coach, but like scheme-wise, they play 2 high safeties the entire game, and they basically challenge you to run the ball. And they just know that, with the big bodies they've got up front, like the Leonard Williams of the world, Byron Murphy, you've got DeMarcus Lawrence on the edge. You've got Uchenna Nwosu on the edge. You've got Boye Mafe on the edge. Like, you've got this really deep defensive line. Ernest Jones at the second unit, and just guys who hit and run in the secondary, they're just okay with like, hey, we'll challenge you to run the ball because we know that our guys are going to win at the line of scrimmage. And that makes it really difficult on teams, right? Because you come into a game like this with the game plan that you're going to run the ball, and it's really easy to deter from that game plan because the Seattle defense is just so lights out up front in terms of their guys on the line of scrimmage. In more games than not, they win in the trenches on both sides of the ball, as a matter of fact. So it makes it really interesting because you've got Drake May, who struggled a lot. The Patriots' offensive line has not been great pass blocking, especially Will Campbell on the left side has not had a good postseason at all, has not really had a great rookie season. He's battled injuries and everything, but that's a number 4 overall pick in the NFL draft, and he's getting beat a lot. The offensive line's been an issue, and that's been part of the reason Drake May has had a little bit of a turnover problem. A lot of the turnovers are fumbles in which he's getting stripped or he's trying to make plays because the pass rush and it's there, and they don't really have the Patriots have offense has been really good this year, but they don't really have like an elite weapon on offense, right? Stephon Diggs, we know Stephon Diggs, but he's coming off of an ACL. He's a little later in his career. He's not the same player he once was. Still unbelievably talented. Kayshon Boutte, who's a good player, but he's really kind of one-dimensional in his game, which is a lot of the deep balls up the sidelines, a lot of the deep shots. Unbelievable at that, but he's kind of, one-sided in terms of that element of his game. Hunter Henry has been a serviceable, very solid tight end in the NFL for a long, long time, but nothing special, right? I think the most special player on this New England offense is the running back, and it's not Ramondre Stevenson, it's Travion Henderson, who got no snaps in that AFC Championship. And I understand it's a snow game, possess the ball, you don't want to risk the rookie fumbling and everything. To be fair, Ramondre Stevenson has had a fumbling problem all year. And against the Seattle defense that plays 2 high safeties, right, there are opportunities for chunk gains on the ground. Now, a lot of the time, the Seattle defensive line is so good that the offense is trying to run the ball. They can't really get those chunk gains. But when you have a runner like Travion Henderson, who has unbelievable acceleration and unbelievable quickness, I think you can exploit that a little more as opposed to having the power backs or a little bit of the slower backs who don't have that like 1 to 10 speed like Travion Henderson has. So I get it. They're going to give Ramondre Stevenson the ball a ton in this game, but I think the X factor for the Patriots on offense isn't Drake May, it isn't any of the pass catchers, it's Travion Henderson. This is the guy who they spent high draft capital on, 2nd-round pick out of Ohio State. He was unbelievable at Ohio State. In the national championship last year, he was hitting home run plays for Ohio State. There's potential for that in this game. Because what Seattle does, for as elite as they are as a defense, in the 2 high safety shell that they're always in, they're susceptible to 2 positions, the running backs and the tight ends. So I think I could see Hunter Henry having a very good game, getting targeted a lot, and I think Travion Henderson is really the X factor for the offense, not just because of what he can do running the ball. He's an excellent receiver. And if the Patriots can throw him on some angle routes, some option routes, maybe some halfback screens, and just try to get the dude in space with his speed and his athleticism, I think this could make for a real equalizer in between these 2 schemes, because everyone looking at this matchup is obviously going to give the Seattle defense the edge over the New England offense. If they can play Travion Henderson, if they can trust in Travion Henderson, I really think it could end up being such a difference maker for the New England Patriots in this game. Ramondre Stevenson, I understand the hate a little bit by fantasy owners of Travion Henderson because Ramondre isn't the explosive athlete that Travion Henderson is. What I will say is Ramondre Stevenson is an unbelievable back in pass protection, which is very underrated in today's NFL. And he's serviceable, right? You can count on him. He's sure-handed. He's had a fumbling problem, but for the most part, he doesn't fumble the ball. He gets you the dirty yards, right? Whereas Travion Henderson, if you need 3 or 4 yards, you're going to go to Ramondre Stevenson more than you are going to go to a guy like Travion Henderson. So I get it. I think in this game, we're going to see a healthy dose of Ramondre Stevenson, whether we like it or not. But are we going to see any Travion Henderson? Because we didn't see any of Henderson in that AFC Championship against the Broncos. And I understood it was weird circumstances with the weather and whatnot, but he could really be the equalizer because as fast and as athletic as this Seattle defense is, especially on the back end, in my eyes, there's only 1, maybe 2 players on the Patriots offense that can really match Seattle's athleticism and speed on the defensive end, and that is Travion Henderson. The other player I would mention a little bit is another rookie, Kyle Williams, the wide receiver for New England. He hasn't really taken shape as an every down receiver in this league. He has his flashes. He's had his big plays this year. But the New England offense don't have a ton of explosives except for the deep shots up the sideline to Kayshon Boutte, which I'm sure we will at least see them attempt many of those. Drake May loves throwing that ball. And then the two rookies in Henderson and Kyle Williams. And you'd imagine that Henderson has a better shot of getting on the field in this one than Kyle Williams does. So I think this matchup between the Patriots offense and the Seattle defense, clear advantage to Seattle, but I think if New England can lean on their rookie, specifically Henderson, enough, I think it can neutralize that side of the ball enough. Now to the other side, Sam Darnold, right? Injures his oblique before the divisional round against the Niners. Comes out, plays an okay game, but it wasn't like he needed to do much in that game. Every other phase of Seattle's team that game was absolute money. So you've got a guy like Sam Darnold who that game, whatever, he comes into the Rams game and really plays the best game of his career against the Rams. He was unbelievably efficient. He took care of the ball, which has been the issue with Sam Darnold the entire year. And it really felt like this was the Sam Darnold that, like, when he went pick number 3 overall, this was the Sam Darnold that the Jets and everyone who had Sam Darnold as a high draft pick back then thought he could become. This guy who has an unbelievable arm, slings the ball, has enough athleticism to make plays, and is an overall great quarterback. And we saw that against the Rams. It's been shaky this year, though, and it's hard. It's very easy to live in the present and think back only, have a short-term memory, only think back to that game. And I think New England fans and the New England defense is going to think back to some of those games in which Sam Darnold has had issues. And the X factor in those games, consistently, when Sam Darnold has struggled this year, the X factor every time is he being affected in the pocket? Is the other team getting pressure on him, speeding up his rhythm, speeding up his tempo? If that happens, Sam Darnold gets the footwork kind of goes out the window a little bit. And he either makes bad decision making because he gets sped up, or he's inaccurate because that footwork, he gets really antsy in the pocket once he starts getting pressure on him. And it's not you have to get pressure on him every single play, but if you can get pressure on him early in the game, right, it's harder for him to settle in, right? In the entire game, it's going to be the antsy feet. He's going to be sped up and going through his reads. And New England's defense has done exactly that to the 3 quarterbacks they faced this postseason. I get it. Jarrett Stidham, backup, snow game, weird. Okay, so let's throw that one out the window. Let's look at the first 2. CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert. I get people don't like CJ Stroud, especially after these last few playoff games. And I get Justin Herbert can't win a playoff game. But these are 2 quarterbacks that, had playoff experience coming into this playoffs with a lot of quarterbacks who didn't have playoff experience. Have won playoff games before, or at least CJ Stroud has. CJ Stroud was 2-0 as a playoff, or was 2-0 in the wild card round, 3-0 in the wild card round, as a matter of fact, after this year. And he'd been to the divisional round a couple years before that. This New England defense, and I talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago when I was previewing that Denver game, their corners on the back end are so good. It allows Mike Vrabel, who obviously doesn't call the plays for the defense, but it allows this defense to walk a bunch of guys up to the line and really try to make it a nightmare on the quarterback. And what that also allows you to do when you have these great corners is it allows you to play one high safety, which means it's really hard for teams to run the ball on you. And as we've known this postseason, and really anytime Sam Darnold's had success, it's been because he's had an amazing run game to complement him. Right? These last 2 games against San Francisco and against LA, that Sam Darnold's played really, really well. What's been an X factor in those games? Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker and this run game has been humming, and that takes the pressure off of Sam Darnold. This New England defense was statistically one of the best run defenses in the entire NFL this year. So you have to think a little bit, okay, Sam Darnold's been good, but it's been when he's had a good run game and the play action game and the tempo's been humming. What's going to happen if early in this game Kenneth Walker isn't getting those chunk gains that he's had against the Rams and against the Niners? What's going to happen if Seattle's in 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s, 3rd and 11s, right? Then the New England defense can bring out their crazy blitz packages. It makes for, again, a fascinating matchup between the Patriots defense and the Seattle offense. I'll be very interested to see because this has been a Seattle offense that, as good as Jackson Smith and Jigba has been this year, and as good as Sam Darnold has been in recent games, it's always been as a complement to the run game. And if this run game can't get humming against New England, it's going to make things tough. So on that end, as I said on the other side of the ball, I thought TreVeyon Henderson was the X factor. I really think Kenneth Walker is the X factor in this one. And not just Kenneth Walker, but the Seattle run game as a whole. Are they going to be able to win at the line of scrimmage? Are they still going to be able to run the ball despite playing heavy boxes due to the Patriots always running one high safety? That becomes the X factor on that side of the ball just because of the simple fact that New England's run defense is so good that if you have success against them running the ball, passing the ball shouldn't be a problem. But part of the reason New England's run defense is so good is because they trust in their DBs so much that they're walking more guys into the line of scrimmage, walking more guys into the box, making it harder to run the ball. So schematically, it makes for a very, very interesting matchup in terms of, is Seattle going to run the ball? Is New England going to stop them running the ball? I would imagine that Clint Kubiak's going to come out in this game. He's going to move Jackson Smith and Jigba all around the formation like they have the past few games to make it really hard on that New England defense to really pinpoint him and really bracket him in coverage. And it's going to be, how do I get JSN open early? Because if you can get JSN and the other Seahawks wide receivers open and humming early, that will discourage New England from loading the box like they like doing, and thus then that run game success could happen later in the game. So what I think will happen is Seattle will probably come out a little more pass heavy than people realize. Sam Darnold had the bye week before the Super Bowl to let, if that oblique was bothering him at all, right, that is able to heal up a little bit. And I think that it's going to be a pass-heavy game plan from the jump. And if the pass game works, then the run game will work off it and really kind of try to drain the Patriots defense late in the game. So a lot of times we think of the run game opening up the pass game. I think for Seattle, this game and a lot of those games early in the season with Seattle this year, it's going to have to be the pass game opening up the run game, the opposite of what most people think. So it'll be interesting to see if Kubiak continues to run the ball early like he has been in these past couple games, or if he recognizes the task on hand, the defense he's playing, and understands that, yeah, I'm going to need to gain some respect through the air first. And, that sets up the risk of Sam Darnold, who's been amazing these past few games, is so turnover worthy. Is Sam Darnold going to be able to make those passes at the beginning of the game? Is he going to be in rhythm? Is he going to be going through his reads properly? Because you could come out the gate passing the ball, right? You could come out the gate trying to unleash Jackson Smith and Jigba and these other Seahawks wide receivers. But if Sam Darnold isn't doing his part, if Sam Darnold gets off to a shaky start, maybe an early pick, maybe he gets sacked early, right? There's a chance that rattles him into the later parts of this game. So it's going to be risky, but if I were a betting man, I would guess that Seattle's going to come out passing the ball first to try and gain some respect from that Patriots defense. Because the one thing you do not want is if you come out running the ball and you run the ball first down, no gain. Run the ball second down, no gain. And you're staring at like a 3rd and 8 or a 3rd and 12 or a 3rd and 10, whatever it may be. You're just asking for Mike Vrabel and this Patriots defense to come out and show the most exotic looks and really try to rattle your quarterback. And that's where New England, who in that Texans game and in that Denver game, a lot of the turnovers, a lot of the big plays have come on later downs. That's because when they get you in 3rd and long, they're able to just really be psychos, right? Really be psychos and walk up a bunch of guys to the line of scrimmage and you don't know who's coming, who's dropping back. I keep saying it. It's fascinating. I'm really excited to see how Seattle plays it on that side of the ball. I said it in the thumbnail. Is Sam Darnold the X factor in this one? I think early he is, but I think in the end it's going to be the Seattle run game, right? Is the Seattle run game going to be able to have success at any point in this game against in my opinion, the league's best, I don't know the statistic, but the league's best run defense in New England? It'll be very, very interesting. The other factor to get away from just the specific sides of the ball in this one, Seattle special teams has been unbelievable this year. And people like ignoring special teams and stuff, but Rashid Shaheed as a returner, the kicker, punter, Jason Myers, Michael Dixon have been phenomenal this year. Seattle's probably had the best special teams unit in the league. That really helps them more than I think people are anticipating. And the weather. This is being played in sunny Bay Area. The weather is going to be perfect for this one, you would imagine, right? New England all postseason, they played in cold weather against the Chargers and then in snowstorms against Houston and against Denver, right? They don't have that kind of caters into their style, which is like run the ball, defense, right? And that's Seattle style too, but Seattle's shown that they can be a little more explosive than New England can and that they're not dependent on the weather kind of helping them out. I feel like New England's really benefited from the snow and the wind in these last couple of games against Denver and Houston, and they're not going to have that luxury this week. Yeah, it's nice to get to play in the sun and everything, but their defense, which makes plays at the line of scrimmage, they're not going to have that snow advantage that we've seen in previous games. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see if that makes any difference at all, right? Is New England's defense that good, or did they really benefit from, let's face it, two pretty weak quarterbacks the last 2 weeks, and Justin Herbert, and the fact that they were playing in these snowstorms? I don't know. I said it at the top. Seattle are 4.5-point favorites in this one, and I get it. I get it. They look so hot. They just smoked the Niners, and then they played an unbelievable game against the Rams. And if it isn't for Tariq Woolen, that game's probably a 10-point game. But you look at it, man, and I'm thinking, and I'm like 4.5 points. No shot New England gets blown out like some people think. And 4.5 points is a significant line. It's not like 7.5 or anything, but it tells you that most people think the Seahawks are winning this one. I don't think it's that easy, man. I don't think it's that easy. I think that this New England team schematically matches up with Seattle unbelievably well. I really, really do think they do. I think their ability to really rattle quarterbacks, and they're playing a quarterback in Sam Darnold who we've seen be rattled on many occasions throughout his pro career. I don't think this is as simple as one team has looked better recently than the other team, right? I get it. Seattle's looked better than New England has recently. I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying is that's not always how it goes. This is a NFL and a UFC podcast, and you say it when you're analyzing fights sometimes. Styles make fights, and this really reminds me of that a lot. Seattle has, these were two 14-3 teams. Seattle by far had the harder strength of schedule. By far, I think, have had the more impressive playoff wins this season. But styles make fights, and styles are making this game. The Patriots' ability to walk guys up to the line of scrimmage, really rattle quarterbacks and stop the run, really goes in, is kind of bad for what Seattle wants to do every game, which is not turn the ball over, quarterback plays a clean game, and then run the ball a lot. If they can't do that against a New England defense, like, it caters to New England's strengths. And then on the other side of the ball, the big equalizer, Nick Eamon pops up on the injury report. He injures his ankle in the first day of practice. Low ankle sprain. This podcast is coming out on Thursday, so who knows if we get more news on that in the meantime. But even if he's out there, I would imagine he's going to be hobbled. I would imagine it's going to take a pain injection or something for him to get on the field. The video of him limping to the hotel, like, I saw Nick Eamon limping to the hotel, I was like, oh, okay, maybe he's just walking with a little hitch in his step. No, looked hard for him to put weight on that foot. And I'm not trying to be a social media analyst here. I guess I kind of am, because this is going on social medias. But, like, that's a huge factor. Nick Eamon has unlocked this Mike Macdonald, defense. Nick Eamon has been for the Seattle defense what Kyle Hamilton has been for the Baltimore defense when Mike Macdonald was there. And Mike Macdonald defenses need these athletic, big hybrid safeties who can go play in the nickel. They can go play at linebacker. They can go play up high. They can do anything. And they neutralize other teams' slot receivers, other teams' tight ends, other teams' running backs when they're running routes out of the backfield. Nick Eamon did a phenomenal job against Christian McCaffrey in that divisional game, taking away McCaffrey's routes out of the backfield. And if he's hobbled in this one, that seriously affects what Seattle can do on defense. So I get it. Seattle's defense has been phenomenal. And if they're going to win this game, it's going to be on the back of that defense, because I think New England's defense matches up really well with Seattle's offense. So then it kind of becomes a numbers game. Do you favor the New England defense more against the Seattle offense than you do the Seattle defense against the New England offense, who hasn't looked great? And it's a toss-up to me. Like when I factor those two things in, I almost think, wow, this game is like a 50-50 in my eyes. I don't know who to pick. And then I mentioned it. And then you think about it, and you go, what team has had special teams win them games this year? What team has had special teams really give them the bump in some of these games? It's been Seattle. Seattle's had the best special teams unit in the league this year. New England's special teams unit has been fine. I'm not trying to make this about them, but Seattle's special teams unit has been unbelievably good. So when I really think that offense, defense wise, these two teams are very evenly matched in terms of New England's O versus Seattle's D and Seattle's O versus New England's D. I think it's going to come down to the margins. I think it's going to come down to the penalties, the special teams, the little things, the boring things that win you playoff games, that win you games in the NFL. And to that, I give Seattle the edge. They've had the far better strength of schedule this year. They're a very disciplined team. They're very good on special teams. They've got the more trustworthy kicker, the more trustworthy punter, the more trustworthy returner. Not to mention, New England's return game is unbelievable with Marcus Jones, but I think Rashid Shaheed right now, in my opinion, is probably the best returner, the best kick returner in the NFL. I think Marcus Jones, you can make an argument, it's the best punt returner in the NFL, which really is a testament to how much special teams matters because these are two great special teams units, in the Super Bowl. But I think Seattle's has been the best this year. Seattle's been a little more of the disciplined team, and Seattle's a team that really hasn't let games slip away. And I don't see them letting this one slip away the way that, it could. So is the 4.5 point line appropriate? I don't think so at all. I think this should be Seattle 2.5 point favorites, if anything. But I'm still taking Seattle to win this football game, to be the Super Bowl champs, to win it at their rival 49ers Stadium. I don't like thinking about that, but they're such a dominant team on the defensive end. They've just got, I think if you want to make this as simple as possible, Seattle's got the better players, man. They just do, right? New England has had a lot of unsung heroes step up to the plate for them this year and really allow them to win football games, and I think that's been spectacular for them. But Seattle just has those perennial talents. The Jackson Smith and Jigbas of the world, the Nick Emanwaris of the world, the Devin Witherspens of the world, the Leonard Williams of the world, the DeMarcus Lawrences of the world. New England's got some phenomenal players. Drake May is an MVP candidate. Christian Gonzalez is an all-pro corner. But I just think if you want to make this as simple as possible, who's roster, who's players, if we're just looking at players, who's got the edge? I think it's Seattle. And then who's got the edge in the little things, the penalties, the special teams, the coaching is probably a toss-up in this one. It's an unbelievably close game because I'm acting like Seattle is like the much more disciplined team and the much better special teams. No, they're not, right? But New England isn't as good as Seattle in terms of those things. So I lean Seattle in this one, but I've talked very highly of New England on this podcast today and in podcasts previously, just because of the simple fact that I think this has been a team that has been unbelievably disrespected this year. We get it. They didn't have a strong schedule. You play who's in front of you. You don't get to really control that. You're not like the previous season, like losing certain games to try and get a certain schedule. Teams play to win. The Patriots play to win, and they've played a lot of teams that didn't end up being great, but they've really had a quality season. Not to mention, okay, you want to use the whole strength of schedule argument. Well, one of the Patriots' losses this year was to the Raiders. Another one was to Pittsburgh. Do we think this New England team that's coming to form in the later half of the year is losing to either of those teams? No, that was a young team still figuring out their identity early in the year with a new head coach, a second-year quarterback, OC who's returning back to the team, and Josh McDaniels, who's my assistant coach of the year. Check out the NFL Honors Pod if you haven't yet. And it's been an unbelievable season by them, and I won't take this disrespect of, the playoff games have looked ugly, there's been no strength of schedule. You only play who's in front of you. At the end of the day, you don't really have an influence in terms of who you get to play and who you don't. And the New England Patriots, as bad as their schedule has been and kind of as easy as the playoff run has been at times, right, playing Jarrett Stidham instead of Bo Nix in the AFC Championship, they can't do anything about it. They can't, right? It's not like they're picking and choosing. So I think this team has been unbelievable, especially on the defensive end. Everyone loves talking Seattle's defense, Houston's defense, Denver's defense. This New England defense, especially in the playoffs, has been elite, has been top tier. And I think that if New England's going to win this game, it's going to be on the back of that defense like it's been all postseason, really making it hell for Sam Darnold. I said it at the front. Seattle 4.5 point favorites. I think that's disrespectful. I also said the over-under was 45.5 points. If you're going to bet on this game, you bet the under. You just do. I get it. Sam Darnold and the Seahawks offense have looked great in recent weeks, but this Patriots defense has been unbelievable in the playoffs. And then on the other side, the Patriots offense hasn't been that great, and Seattle's defense has been great. It's as simple as that. 45.5 points. If it was 42.5, maybe you don't touch it. 45.5 points. I'm not a huge sports bettor anymore, but I'm definitely putting some money on the under in this one. I just think the way that these two teams match up with each other, this is just built to be a 23-17 game or a 20-16 game, something like that. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be gritty. I think there's going to be a lot of people after the game talking about, oh, this was a boring game, kind of like how that Patriots Rams game was back in 2018, 2019 that was. So I understand it, but I think these are two unbelievable defensive coaches in McDonald and Vrabel. Obviously, like I've said, Vrabel hasn't been the one calling the plays, and I really think we're looking at the barrel of a 23-17 or 20-16, a lower scoring game. So that's my take on Super Bowl 60. I feel so old. I remember Super Bowl 50 at this stadium, Broncos, Panthers. I remember watching that game, where I was watching that game and everything, and that was 10 years ago. And I was 11 years old back then, and, time flies in the NFL, and it's crazy to think how, we're so used to parity every year. Teams who aren't good are all of a sudden good. You've got these perennial losers like the Lions who all of a sudden start winning games and start like competing and stuff. Like the NFL doesn't changes more year to year than any other sports organization does. But then you've got the aspect of like these are two unbelievably well-run organizations, and they were at the top of the mountain about 10 years ago. They had little mini rebuilds, if you will, little like retooled, new coaches, new everything, and because the organizations just systematically win, they're back here. So I think that's a testament. Not a huge Patriots guy, definitely not a big Seattle guy, but I think that's just a testament to how good these two teams are, frankly. I just think these are two unbelievable teams. These are two Super Bowl caliber teams. And it's hard for people to digest that because these were two teams that not many people were picking to even make the playoffs before the year. I picked Seattle to make the playoffs. I got some flack for that from one of the guys at the Here We Go podcast, which, by the way, go listen to those guys if you haven't already. And, I took Seattle to make the playoffs. I did not think Seattle was a Super Bowl caliber team. And I sure as hell didn't think New England was going to be a Super Bowl caliber team this year. But it's the coaching and systematically organizations. When you just are well run, good owner, good GM, good leadership, you get back to the top of the mountain very, 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 very quick. And I think Seattle fans and New England fans should be thankful for that. So that is Super Bowl 60. Little mini, if you're here for the Super Bowl talk, thank you. I appreciate you. I'm going to do a little bit of an update on the future of this podcast right now, so please leave if you wish. And if you're still here, the future of this podcast is, it'll be a little different. I launched this in October, mid-football season. It's a UFC and NFL podcast, so the UFC content will still be coming. We're right in the swing of things of the UFC and all of that. But this is the NFL offseason. So the pod, in terms of the timing of pods, the consistency of the NFL content, it might change a little bit. I will definitely be there to break down free agency when free agency starts. The draft, of course, I'm super excited. I'd love to maybe do some film breakdowns of some prospects that I really like in the upcoming draft. Maybe some typical ones like the Mendozas of the world, maybe some lower tier guys. But regardless, we'll have to figure it out. We'll have to be a little creative. I also, I'm getting into the swing of things of the school semester. So if uploads and reels aren't as persistent, aren't as common, I do apologize. But at the end of the day, I think this offsetting penalties thing, I think, we can continue to grow it. We're getting more and more views and more interactions and stuff, which mean the absolute world to me. And the NFL content might not be as consistent now with it being the off season, but I might as well continue to, like I keep saying, the NFL season never rests, and I'll continue to do content for them. And really, I think UFC is going to take the limelight for a bit. We're hitting that time of year where there's UFC cards basically every weekend, so I'll be there to recap those and preview those, of course. And then, of course, me and Game Time Gretch will still be doing, more than likely weekly podcasts talking about NFL and maybe some other podcasts, maybe another podcast, not NFL, UFC related, will be launched in the near future. Wink, wink, wink. So I appreciate everyone being here. Like I always say, you're an absolute psycho if you're here till the end. Super Bowl 60. I will be there with Game Time Gretch live Sunday night after the Super Bowl to recap it, talk about whoever the new kings of the NFL are, and we'll go from there. Also, Niners-Rams got announced as a Melbourne game. I've got some thoughts about that, but we'll get to that as the offseason goes on and all that. So I appreciate everyone being here. You mean the absolute world to me. I love doing these. I love all the support that I get, and I appreciate you more than you could ever realize. If you're here to the end, you're a psycho. I love you, and I'll see you guys later.